And greetings, and welcome to another session of Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. And this one is going to be the conclusion of the second degree fellowcraft. So, briefly here, I'm going to check the audio, make sure everything's going clear on the YouTube side. Testing A, testing B. It looks like everything's running good there. And let's just get right to it. So, if you don't know where we left off, you have to watch the previous one, but I'm going to start right here. So this is at the end of the fellowcraft, second degree. Select thinkers to be legislators, and avoid the gabblers. Wisdom is rarely loquacious. Weight and depth of thought are unfavorable to volubility. And as you notice, there's problems with some of my scans here of the document, but volubility is correct. That's, to be overly vocal literally means to roll, as if to roll off the tongue utterances very quickly. The shallow and superficial are generally voluble and often pass for eloquent. More words, less thought is the general rule. The man who endeavors to say something worth remembering in every sentence becomes fastidious and condenses like Tacitus. The vulgar love a more diffuse stream, the ornamentation that does not cover strength is the gewgaws of babble. Neither is dialectic subtly valuable to public men. The Christian faith had it formerly more than now, a subtlety that might have entangled Plato, which has rivaled in a fruitless fashion the mystic lore of Jewish rabbis and Indian sages. It is not this which converts the heathen. It is a vain task to balance the great thoughts of the earth, like hollow straws, on the fingertips of disputation. It is not this kind of warfare which makes the cross triumphant in the hearts of unbelievers, but the actual power that lives in the faith. Yeah, here's a great quote from here, the gewgaws of Babel. We're hearing more and more of this. So there is a political scholasticism that is merely useless. The dexterities of subtle logic rarely stir the hearts of people or convince them. The true apostles of liberty, fraternity, and equality makes it a matter of life and death. His combats are like those of Bossuet, combats to the death. The true apostolistic fire is like the lightning. It flashes conviction into the soul. The true word is verily a two-edged sword. Matters of government and political science can be fairly dealt with only by sound reason and logic of common sense. Not the common sense of the ignorant, but of the wise. The acutest thinkers rarely succeed in becoming leaders of men. A watchword or a catchword is more potent with the people than logic, especially if it is to be the least metaphysical. When a political prophet arises to stir the dreaming, stagnant nation and hold back its feet from the irretrievable descent, to heave the land as with an earthquake, and shake the silly, shallow idols from their seats, his words will come straight from God's own mouth and will be thundered into the conscience. He will reason, teach, warn, and rule. The real sword of the Spirit is keener than the brightest blade of Damascus. Such men rule a land in the strength of justice, with wisdom and with power. Still, the men of dialectic subtlety often rule well, because in practice they forget their finely spun theories and use the trenchant logic of common sense. But when the great heart and the large intellect are left to rust in private life, and small attorneys, brawlers in politics, and those who in the cities would be only the clerks of notaries or practitioners in the disreputable courts, are made national legislators, the country is in her dotage, even if the beard has not yet grown upon her chin. In a free country, human speech must needs be free, and the state must listen to the mutterings of folly, and the screechings of its geese, and the brayings of its asses, as well as to the golden oracles of its wise and great men. Even the despotic old kings allowed their wise fools to say what they liked. The true alchemist will extract the lessons of wisdom from the babblings of folly. He will hear what a man has to say on any given subject, even if the speaker end only in proving himself prince of fools. Even a fool will sometimes hit the mark. There is some truth in all men who are not compelled to suppress their souls and speak other men's thoughts. The finger, even of the idiot, may point to the great highway. A people, as well as the sages, must learn to forget. If it neither learns the new nor forgets the old, it is fated, even if it has been royal for 30 generations. To unlearn is to learn, and also it is sometimes needful to learn again the forgotten. The antics of fools make the current follies more palpable, as fashions are shown to be absurd by caricatures, which are so led to their extirpation. The buffoon and the zany are useful in their places. The ingenious artificer and craftsman, like Solomon, searches the earth for his materials and transforms the misshapen matter into glorious workmanship. The world is conquered by the head even more than by the hands, nor will any assembly talk forever. After a time, when it has listened long enough, it quietly puts the silly, the shallow, and the superficial to one side. It thinks and sets to work. All right, we got Brian in the house here. I just noticed. Welcome. And of course, Rick J. Archangel. Glad to see everyone here. Deanna. All right, everyone. I think I got everyone here. Let me make sure the chat's working live on my end. And I think we're going good. Let's continue. The human thought, especially in popular assemblies, runs in the most singularly crooked channels, harder to trace and follow than the blind currents of the ocean. No notion is so absurd that it may not find a place there. The master workman must train these notions in vagaries with his two-handed hammer. They twist out of the way of the sword thrusts and are invulnerable all over, even in the heel, against logic. The martel or mace, the battle axe, the great double-edged two-handed sword must deal with follies. The rapier is no better against them than a wand, unless it be the rapier of ridicule. The sword is also the symbol of war and of the soldier. Wars, like thunderstorms, are often necessary to purify the stagnant atmosphere. War is not a demon, without remorse or reward. It restores the brotherhood in letters of fire. When men are seated in their pleasant places, sunken in ease and indolence, with pretense and incapacity and littleness usurping all the high places of state, War is the baptism of blood and fire by which alone they can be renovated. It is the hurricane that brings the elemental equilibrium, the concord of power and wisdom. So long as these continue obstinately divorced, it will continue to chasten. In the mutual appeal of the nations to God, there is the acknowledgement of His might. It lights the beacons of faith and freedom, and heats the furnace through which the earnest and loyal pass to immortal glory. There is in the war the doom of defeat, the quenchless sense of duty, the stirring sense of honor, the measureless solemn sacrifice of devoutness, and the incense of success. Even in the flame and smoke of battle, the Mason discovers his brother and fulfills the sacred obligations of fraternity. 2, or the duad, is a symbol of antagonism, of good and evil, light and darkness. It is Cain and Abel, Eve and Lilith, Jachin and Boaz, Ormuz and Ahriman, Osiris and Typhon. 3, or the triad, is the most significantly expressed by the equilateral and right-angled triangles. There are 3 principal colors or rays in the rainbow, which by intermixture make 7. The 3 are the blue, the yellow, and the red, the trinity of the deity. In one mode or another, has been an article in all creeds. He creates, preserves, and destroys. He is the generative power, the productive capacity, and the result. The immaterial man, according to the Kabbalah, is composed of vitality, or life, the breath of life, of soul or mind, and spirit. Salt, sulfur, and mercury are the great symbols of the alchemist. To them, man was body, soul, and spirit. Here? Okay. 4 is expressed by the square, or the 4-sided right-angled figure. Out of the symbolic Garden of Eden flowed a river, dividing into 4 streams. Pison, which flows around the land of gold, or light. Gihon, which flows around the land of Ethiopia, or darkness. Hiddekel, running eastward to Assyria, and the Euphrates. Zechariah saw 4 chariots coming out from between 2 mountains of bronze, in the first of which were red horses, in the second black, in the third white, and in the fourth grizzled. Quote, and these were the 4 winds of the heavens that go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. Ezekiel saw the 4 living creatures, each with 4 faces and 4 wings, the faces of man and a lion, an ox, and an eagle, and the 4 wheels going upon their 4 sides. And St. John beheaded the 4 beasts, full of eyes before and behind, the lion, the young ox, the man, and the flying eagle. 4 was the signature of the earth. Therefore, in the 148th Psalm of those who must praise the Lord on the land, there are 4 times 4 and 4 in particular of living creatures. Visible nature is described as the 4 quarters of the world and the 4 corners of the earth. There are 4, says the old Jewish saying, which take the first place in this world: man among the creatures, the eagle among the birds, the ox among the cattle, and the lion among the wild beasts. Daniel saw 4 great beasts come up from the sea. 5 is the duad added to the triad. It is expressed by the five-pointed or blazing star, the mysterious pentalpha of Pythagoras. It is indissolubly connected with the number 7. Christ fed his disciples and the multitude with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And all the fragments there remain 12, that is, 5 and 7, baskets full. Again, he fed them with 7 loaves and a few little fishes, and there remained 7 baskets full. The 5 apparently small planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, with the 2 greater ones, the Sun and Moon, constituted the 7 celestial spheres. So yeah, this is a good one here too. The mind, body, and soul equals the Trinity. The soul is energy in motion, emotion. Nice one, Rick J. All right, let's proceed. 7 was a peculiarly sacred number. There were 7 planets and spheres presided over by 7 archangels. There were 7 colors in the rainbow, and the Phoenician deity was called the Heptachus, or god of 7 rays, the 7 days of the week, and the 7 and 5 made the number of months, tribes, and apostles. Zechariah saw a golden candlestick with 7 lamps, and 7 pipes to the lamps, and an olive tree on each side. Since he says, "The 7 eyes of the Lord shall rejoice, and shall see the plummet in the hands of Zerubbabel," John in the Apocalypse writes 7 epistles to the 7 churches. In the 7 epistles, there are 12 promises. What is said of the churches in praise or blame is completed in the number 3. The refrain, "Who has ears to hear," etc., has 10 words, divided by 3 and 7, and the 7 by 3 and 4, and the 7 epistles are also so divided. In the seals, trumpets, and vials, also of this symbolic vision, the 7 are divided by 4 and 3. He who sends his message to Ephesus holds the 7 stars in his right hand and walks amid the 7 golden lamps. In 6 days or periods, God created the universe and paused on the 7th day. Of clean beasts, Noah was directed to take by 7s into the ark, and of fowls by 7s, because in 7 days the rain was to commence. On the 17th day of the month, the rain began. On the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark rested on Ararat. When the dove returned, Noah waited 7 days before he sent her forth again, and again 7 after she returned with the olive leaf. Enoch was the 7th patriarch, Adam included, and Lamech lived 777 years. There were 7 lamps in the great candlestick of the tabernacle and temple, representing the 7 planets. 7 times Moses sprinkled the anointing oil upon the altar. The days of consecration of Aaron and his sons were 7 in number. A woman was unclean 7 days after childbirth. One infected with leprosy was shut up 7 days. 7 times the leper was sprinkled with the blood of a slain bird, and 7 days afterwards he must remain abroad out of his tent. 7 times in purifying the leper, the priest was to sprinkle the consecrated oil, and 7 times to sprinkle with the blood of the sacrificed bird to the house to be purified. 7 times the blood of the slain bullock was sprinkled on the mercy seat, and 7 times on the altar. The 7th year was a Sabbath of rest. The 7th year was a Sabbath of rest. And at the end of 7 times 7 years came the great year of Jubilee. 7 days the people ate unleavened bread in the month of Abib. 7 weeks were counted from the time of first putting the sickle to the wheat. The Feast of the Tabernacles lasted 7 days. Israel was in the hand of Midian 7 years before Gideon delivered them. The bullock sacrificed by him was 7 years old. Samson told Delilah to bind him with 7 green withes, and she wove the 7 locks out of his head, and afterwards shaved them off. Balaam took Barak to build for him 7 altars. Jacob served 7 years for Leah, and 7 for Rachel. Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters, making the perfect number 10. He had also 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels. His friend sat down with him 7 days and 7 nights. His friends were ordered to sacrifice 7 bullocks and 7 rams, and again, at the end, he had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and twice 7,000 sheep, and lived 140, or twice 7 times 10 years. Pharaoh saw in his dreams 7 fat and 7 lean kine, 7 good years and 7 blasted years of wheat, and they were 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. Jericho fell when 7 priests with 7 trumpets made the circuit of the city on the 7 successive days, one each day for 6 days, and the 7 times on the 7th. The 7 eyes of the Lord, says Zechariah, to run to and fro through the whole earth. Solomon was 7 years in building the temple. 7 angels in the apocalypse pour out 7 plagues from 7 vials of wrath. The scarlet-colored beast, on which woman sits in the wilderness, has 7 heads and 7 horns. So also has the beast that rises up out of the sea. 7 thunders uttered their voices. 7 angels sounded 7 trumpets. 7 lamps of fire, the 7 spirits of God, burned before the throne, and the Lamb that was slain had 7 horns and 7 eyes. 8 is the first cube, that of 2. 9 is the square of 3, and represented by the triple triangle. 10 includes all the numbers. It is especially 7 and 3, and it is called the number of perfection. Pythagoras represented it as the tetractys, which had many mystic meanings. This symbol is sometimes composed of dots or points, sometimes of commas or yods, and in the Kabbalah, of the letters of the name of the deity. It is thus arranged. Get that? Yes, commas. Okay. So we see how the commas are arranged here? 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The patriarchs, from Adam to Noah inclusive, are 10 in number, and the same number is that of the commandments. 12 is the number of the lines of equal length that form a cube. It is the number of the months, the tribes, and the apostles. Of the oxen under the brazen sea, of the stones on the breastplate of the high priest. And that takes us to the end of the 2nd degree. The next one we're going to go on to next will be the 3rd degree, the master. And just as a little teaser, we're going to read this part right here. To understand literally the symbols and allegories of Oriental books as to anti-historical matters, it is woefully too close our eyes against the light. To translate the symbols into the trivial and the commonplace is the blundering of mediocrity. So we're going to be moving on to the master here, and read another passage here before we get onto that here. All religious expression is symbolism. since we can describe only what we see, and the true objects of religion are the seen. The earliest instruments of education were symbols, and they and all other religious forms differed, and still differ, according to external circumstances and imagery, and according to differences of knowledge and mental cultivation. All language is symbolic, so far as it is applied to mental and spiritual phenomena and action. All words have, primarily, a material sense. However, they may afterwards get, for the ignorant, a spiritual nonsense. To retract, for example, is to draw back, and when applied to a statement, is symbolic, as much so as a picture of an arm drawn back to express the same thing would be. The very word spirit means breath, from the Latin verb spiro, breathe. Okay, so these are some of the little teasers for our next one, and we'll get into presenting visible symbols and how they work and how these all come about in applying to the practice. So let's continue on with this on the next one. So I want to thank everyone for coming here for this. Morals and Dogma, the Second Degree Fellow Craft by Albert Pike. This is from 1871. This is a text that's supposedly no longer practiced, but we'll be going through this, which is actually the preparation for the 33rd degree. And as we go through these chapters, there's always something to learn, both historical and, as they're alluding to here, anti-historical. So understanding the origins of where a lot of these morals and dogma and symbolism comes from helps us understand how we got to where we are today and how we can further progress forward for the coming generations and posterity. So with that, I thank you all for spending the time to be here. I know there's other places to go on YouTube and other things to see right now, but the fact that you guys are here really shows that you do care about these kinds of rights and freedoms of expression and the ways we can keep these institutions accountable and exercise our power instead of giving it away. So on that, I want to thank you guys again for coming. Please like, subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell notification because the channel has been slightly shadow banned lately. So anything you guys can do to kind of keep notifications set up, because I know sometimes they get accidentally or unintentionally shut off by the YouTube masters. I would appreciate that too, so we can all go along on this journey, learning and contributing together. Again, I want to thank you all for coming, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.